Hey YouTube, thanks for tuning in to Rich Story Time. This is actually going to be just one story throughout. There's going to be several different parts to it. This is the first part, the teaser, the prologue. The next one should be rolling out in maybe a day or 2 days, but I'll get it out there pretty quick for y'all. If you enjoy it, go ahead and like the video and subscribe so you don't miss any updates. All right, let's get into it. It's time, boss. Seth is here with the clients. The boss grunted. Good, they've kept me waiting long enough. Largan, don't you keep me waiting, he said with a smirk. Get the chest downstairs, quickly. While the boss was adjusting his cloak to better conceal the sword and dagger at his hip, Largan rushed to grab the chest. It scraped along the wooden floors as he dragged it from the corner of the room. Before sunrise, Largan, the boss chuckled. Largan stifled a groan. This kind of labor was for a younger man, he thought. Largan had heard how the boss talked about this job. There was serious money involved, and for that alone he would do whatever it took. He sighed, steeled himself, and heaved the chest into his arms. He lurched to one side from the sheer weight of it. Thick as it was, Largan could hear a dull clutter from inside the chest. The boss glared at him. All humor had left his expression. Fear of losing money quickly turned into anger, directed at Largan. Curse you, dullard! You know the word fragile, right? That means if a single item is damaged, you'll receive no wages for the work. Largan shifted the chest in his arms uncomfortably. But I need the money. Not another word, he snarled. Move. Yes, sir. Muscles flexed under the weight. Largan made his way towards the door, following his employer. The boss grabbed the lantern and made his way through the door. Largan followed down narrow halls and rickety stairs, each floorboard creaking, each step sagging under his weight. At the bottom, the stairs opened into a small tap room. Tables and chairs were arranged haphazardly throughout, the furniture stained and warped, and the stools wobbled on crooked legs. It wasn't exactly a luxurious establishment, but it also didn't draw much attention. The humdrum and drab appearance made it a perfect location for tonight's operation. The boss had paid a hefty sum to the innkeeper for privacy to ensure that tonight went smoothly. Seth and the clients sat across from each other at a table in the middle of the tap room. They were chatting quietly. A lantern flickered on the table between them. Largan took one look at the clients and became unsettled. He immediately caught himself and held tighter to the chest he was holding. The men were armed. Swords and cudgels hung from their waist, and chainmail draped their heads and torsos. Red cloaks were fastened by torch-shaped clasps at their necks, and red plumes crested their tall helmets. He'd seen these soldiers prowling the city streets in the day and patrolling them with torches raised at night. Torchmen, the townsfolk called them. Largan knew their torches weren't just for sight. He'd heard the gruesome stories about how they were used on people who looked a lot like Largan. He couldn't see the torchmen's eyes, but he could feel them trained on him, analyzing him, judging him. What's a mudman like you doing here? One of them asked. Mudman, a slang term for dwarves. Largan couldn't help but clench his jaw. Ignore him. He's just a donkey we hired to haul this damn trunk. The boss quickly interjected with a fake smile. The torchmen smirked at the word donkey. The boss leaned in close to Largan. What did I say? He demanded under his breath. Put the chest down and don't say a word, you oaf. The boss straightened up as he greeted the torchman. The kings illuminate you, torchman, he said. The greeting still sounded odd to Largan, but the clients repeated it like it was second nature. They responded in their native tongue with the more informal Kin Luminya. The boss shook hands with them, wearing his fake smile he so often used while talking business. While they were chatting, Largan quietly sat the chest down and retreated to a dark corner of the room, wishing he could be invisible. This wish would not be granted. The torchmen wouldn't forget his presence. He could feel their gazes drift to him between the lulls in conversation. The boss regaled the torchman with an awful joke and roared with laughter. The torchman feigned amusement and summoned some forced laughter. The boss assumed Largan was to blame for their ill temper and glared at him. Largan wondered if anything remained of the money he was owed by the boss, or if the coins were vanishing one by one with each passing second. The boss's annoyance quickly disappeared behind his fake friendly smile. He ushered the torchman to sit and questioned, "All right, let's get down to it," while stretching his fake smile to its limits. "Indeed," replied the torchman. 30 gold marks in payment to Torrin Arnoldson and to his associate Seth Emmerson, as previously agreed upon." The torchman slid the second bag across the table to the boss, as well as the first. Largan had heard the boss's name before, but it had been a long month and he'd almost forgotten it, always referring to him as boss instead of Torrin. Largan's jaw dropped. 30 gold marks to each of them? That was preposterously high reward. Where Largan was from, a single gold mark would make a decent wage for a month, and thus he had agreed to the job. 2 marks would earn a month of living without worry, and 3 would give you your full heart's desire. Well, as long as you didn't have the heart of a king, that is. Largan had been ordered to ask no questions. Torrin and Seth had smuggled the chest many miles before they hired Largan to haul it. Perhaps Largan should have asked for more, and they did agree to his terms rather quickly. As long as he'd been with them nearly a month, the contents of the chest remained a mystery. Weapons was as much as Seth had been willing to say. But what kind of weapons could be worth so much? To be smuggled so far? What kind of a client would pay so much for one job? Largan wondered. What kind of client even had the money to afford this kind of reward? Torrin had told him he would get a fair cut of the profits. He'd counted himself lucky. While not surprised to be lied to, Largan was shocked and now alarmed at hearing the true amount of money for this job. What is in this chest? He thought to himself. Hey, thanks for sticking around. That was the end of part 1 of The Choice of Night. If you would go ahead and like or subscribe if you hadn't already done that, and make sure to stay tuned for updates.